Tilly's mac and cheese is disturbingly not delicious. Kaminar has voted to return to the stars, and as everybody knows, it is difficult to ride two veil beasts with only one set of buttocks. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, everyone.
Today, we're doing a review of Discovery Season 4, Episode 3, Choose to Live. We are joined by Rocky Faulkner, who is the Onset Prosthetic Makeup Department head. It's quite a mouthful. You must do a ton. How are you today, Rocky?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
Awesome. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and no title necessary for me. Thank you so much for joining us, Rocky. This is really cool. This show is prosthetic and makeup heavy. So you guys must have a huge team and a huge room full of tons of prosthetics and goos and things that we've never even heard of. So it's going to be a really fun time talking with you. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Wow. So let's just get started. Right before we hit record, first things first, can you just reiterate what an amazing human Mr. Doug Jones is? And Kelpin.
he's honestly the nicest gentleman you could ever work with and have to put through prosthetics on a almost daily basis. I mean, he works at least 3 to 4 days a week on the show. Always a pleasure, always nice, always smiling, giving you a hug. We always say we couldn't have done the show without Doug. Literally, he's our backbone to starting our day, because we see him just about every other day. Again, he knows how to wear makeup. He performs amazing in it. He brings all these characters to life. Without him, it'd just be a bunch of silicone or foam sitting in the corner somewhere. He's honestly one of the best, hands down.
Mm-hmm. Had you ever worked with him? Have you ever worked with him before Discovery? Because he gets around, especially in people that work in prosthetics and horror movies and things like that.
I don't think I have, to tell you the truth. I think I met him somewhere. But no, I don't think I've ever worked with him, but he does get around. I mean, he literally knows everybody, and everybody knows Doug, but I don't think I've ever worked with him before that. No.
Wow.
You know, Rocky, when we talk to different actors who have worn prosthetics on Star Trek, the main thing they do is complain about wearing prosthetics on Star Trek. And you know, being the guy that has to administer that, what are some of the conversations that you have like with people?
It all depends on what really bothers them. If there's certain things, the glues, the fumes, a lot of that stuff has been resolved these days. A lot of the materials don't have any smells. The glues we use, they don't smell like anything anymore. They're very non-toxic. Sometimes it's the weight of it. Sometimes it's the patience of sitting there. Everybody's a little different, you know. There's a couple of people this season that we thought it was gonna be a pain in the butt, and they sat there like a champ. They loved it. Everybody was like, "Oh, wait till you get him in your chair. He can't even do regular makeup." And the performer that came through was just like, we're like, he's a rock, man. He's so solid. So you never really know. It's like, you never know what you're going to get when a performer comes into the chair. They could have worn it a million times, and then just this one case, they're feeling claustrophobic. They're not feeling the character. Who knows what? So, it is a per person basis on how they're feeling being in makeup.
You know, a lot of it too. And as Cirroc, is what you're bringing up is a lot of the people we're talking with too are from 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, a lot of it may be just major improvements. Like with anything else, things improve. You get better, prosthetics, better application methods, better glues, as you're saying. Have there been a lot of improvements just in the last, say, 10 years or so?
Oh, 100%. I mean, even just in the past year, there's one glue that everybody's kind of like the standard basis that has been using, and it's the thinner that has a bit of a smell. It's not like acetone. It's just a little bit chemically smell. And there's a new glue that came out, doesn't have any smell at all. And just recently, we were touching up Doug on something, and we didn't have the newer stuff. And we used some of the older stuff, and you're like, holy cow, this stuff does smell really bad. I can't believe we used this for so long. And we were just like, wow, it's crazy that now that we use it, we're immediately like, oh, that's horrible. But we've been using it for, how many years without, saying anything really. You're just like, oh, that's the glue we use. But yeah, there's tons of stuff coming out all the time through glues, through silicone, through everything that we use. It's ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
Does an actor have to be awake when you're applying the makeup?
For certain parts, for some of these guys, especially if their heads are down, if they're falling asleep like that, because you want them like in the position or their head just slightly back, just a tad, so you get that tension when they lower their head. But once you get to a certain point, like Doug Jones can take a nap every once in a while. He doesn't really ever unless he's really exhausted. But there are points when you can take a nap, like when we're painting certain parts of it, you can. But for the initial application where you need to line everything up exactly, they need to be awake.
Mm-hmm. Well, I heard Doug can take a nap without messing up like the makeup, because I heard he sleeps like a stork with just kind of like one leg, with just like one leg. No, but I did hear, was it Michael Dorn that would say that he'd come in at like 4:30 in the morning on Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, and like, Cirroc, maybe you remember this, but I feel like he said that he would just show up early and just sleep in the chair while they applied, but most of his was just on his face, not so much around here. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. And that was probably obviously foam latex too, being, back then. So it has different movements and everything else. The silicone is, for a lot of the characters on Discovery, it's a little heavier and stuff like that. So it really needs to be in place. Foam has a little bit more give than the silicone and everything too. So it's a little bit more forgiving sometimes in the application. You can trick it a little bit more.
And it's all encompassing. It's all around their necks. It's front and back.
For every single character on the show, it does seem to be pretty much all encompassing. Even like the Orions, they're covered now in prosthetics. They're full prosthetics. I think I wasn't there last season, but I think last season is when they started doing full prosthetics on the Orions. We have some, I think, coming up in episode 3 tonight. I think when it airs, or what I'm not sure what day it airs now.
Are we talking? Well, we're on
Discovery
4.
Yeah.
And there were no Orions in this one. So maybe stay tuned for next week, everybody.
Weird, because I keep seeing photos released of all that stuff. The photos are out there. I keep seeing her released. Anyway, it is all encompassing of prosthetics now. It's like ears, neck, everything is prosthetic. So like you said, it is a lot more than just like a little nose tip or a forehead or something else.
I want to ask you, I'm looking here at your career, and you've done so many different things, but very few things are really like Star Trek. And my question is, what was different about the standard of makeup coming into Star Trek that you recognized as opposed to some of the other work that you've done on shows?
I think just for this show, it has such a huge history. I mean, there's so many different shows, so many different characters, and it's hard to make everybody happy with that kind of stuff. It's like the design people go through so much work and so much backstories and everything. It's a totally different world than what I'm used to. You can work on a vampire show and you're like, this is how the vampires look for this show, and everybody's fine because it's a one-off sort of thing. But you got a Ferengi, and all of a sudden they're doing a different episode, or it's 900 years in the future, and somebody doesn't look the same or doesn't have the same teeth, and there's a huge uproar. So it's harder on that, and not for me, mainly for the designers who create all the looks and stuff like that. It's very challenging for those guys coming up with stuff that the fans are going to be happy with.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the Ferengi, because that was a point of contention in this last episode, was this Ferengi, and how much does that affect what you guys do when you get reactions from the fans? They're like, oh, we don't like that. That's not authentic, or that's not the way they're supposed to look. How much does that weigh on your, or does it affect the way you guys go forward, or do you make adjustments and say, okay, let's kind of use a more orangey color because that one was maybe too, auburn or something? Do you make those kind of adjustments, or do you just keep going and sticking with what you're doing?
Like Glenn and Alchemy, who make all the prosthetics for Star Trek Discovery, they go back and forth. You see chain emails for days on what the color should be, how to adjust it. His ideas, the writer's ideas. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen for that kind of stuff. It is very difficult, with any of these new characters, time jumps, everything else. And I'm not involved in a lot of that design sort of stuff. I just see the chain emails and I'm always like, Glenn, thank God I'm not on these chains with you, because that's a lot of, it was just like, can we slightly change the orange color, he doesn't have the freckles or whatever it may be, and it's hard to find to make everybody happy, really. Everybody tries their best. And again, with that many creative people in a room, it's a lot of work to come to a happy medium.
Cirroc, when you were bringing up, and by the way, everybody at home, I promise we're definitely going to talk about this episode because there's so much good stuff in this episode. We're definitely going to get to it. People are like, I thought it said episode 3 in this description. Oh, we definitely will, believe me. But Cirroc, when you mentioned that Rocky's worked on a bunch of other projects, everybody that's watching right now and listening, Rocky also worked on season 3 of the Orville. And I cannot wait to ask you about that a little bit later, but I do want to finish up first on these email chains that you're talking about, because it really does help to remind those of us that are on the outside looking in just how many cooks are in this kitchen. It's not just 7 writers sitting in a room. The makeup department is almost like their own writer's room, because they're getting, their information from the producers and the writers. Then they're kind of writing and rewriting and the production designers are writing and rewriting. The musicians, right? The wardrobe department, that's also phenomenal. And I've never heard a negative word about the production value of all of these departments. It's very clear and very obvious that, number one, Paramount is not skimping on the money to make these things. Maybe on the inside they are, but to us, it looks like they're throwing enough money to make a huge production. It's also clear that they have hired the best professionals and the most talented people. And it just must be such an exhilarating feeling when you're like looking through these emails and you're creating new things and you're saying, what would be awesome is if we could do something like this. And you can do it. And you can actually put that together. Has there ever been something that you guys, you just kind of threw something out there and said, well, maybe we could do this, or it's a far-fetched idea, but let's give it a try, and it just worked out great? Or are you always just kind of like working with things that you've already know work, if that makes sense?
I'm trying to think of how to answer that question. It's kind of both. There's generally, by the time everything gets to us, everything's pretty much ironed out on how they want it. Glenn and the writers and the directors and everybody have gone, the executives have kind of ironed out what they want. But then when it gets to us, we'll do a makeup test. Certain things might work, they might not work. And that's when we go back to the drawing board, or, more email chains will go out. They'll talk to Glenn. Hey, can we change this? I don't like whatever it may be. And then we kind of finagle things to make it work. But then there's usually another design process or paint process or something like that. For this show, since it is a lot of it's based off of existing characters, there's not a lot of wiggle room, but there's sometimes little things you can adjust while you're doing makeup tests and stuff.
What are some of the problem areas that you run into? Because you mentioned the new adhesives and the new things that you have for application. because I remember when we were doing the show, there would be certain problem areas on different aliens. I think, for example, the Ferengi, the Quark would always have a problem with his nose being glued down properly at the edges. And so right before we roll camera, usually the camera, somebody would look through the lens and say, hey, somebody get Rocky over here to touch down that nose because it's poking up so much. So what are some of the kind of touch up on set problem areas that you're always kind of tending to?
The usual things. I mean, with Doug, he holds up amazing. Saru is always amazing. A lot of times their collars are so tight on all the performers. You can see like Gersha does such an amazing job with the costumes, but they're so tailored. They're so tight on the neck. So any movement throughout the day, sometimes it gets a little friction on some of the necks of the guys. Doug's makeup, we generally don't have to do a lot to. It's just the inside corner of his lips. Generally, it's the mouth, and all these characters, it's the lips and the mouth and how they, again, it depends on how expressive they are and stuff like that too, and what is going to pop up. If they drank last night, if alcohol comes through their pores at all, if they have oily skin, but generally the mouth is the biggest problem area for the most part of these sort of makeups.
Mm-hmm. That brings up a good point about Gersha. And by the way, we're constantly talking about the amazing work that she and the wardrobe department do. Cirroc is a wardrobeologist and he catches everything. And the wardrobe, I'm sure everybody knows the wardrobe is freaking incredible. Does the makeup department and the wardrobe department collaborate every once in a while, like or share notes or just have any kind of interaction in that regard, or are they just two separate things that do their own thing?
I think again, by the time they work out the ideas and the design and the Photoshop, going back and forth between everybody, we'll go in with Gersha all the time and do fittings. If there's a new cowl, they have to do measurements and stuff like that. Glenn might say, hey, there's a hairpiece that's going to cover this back part of somebody's head or something like that. Please watch out for high collars on somebody. So there is a collaborative effort every once in a while if it's something that's going to be affected by each other's work and stuff, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. All right.
I love what I'm seeing on Discovery. Really quick question: the Ebronian, is that was the Ebronian that we saw in this episode? Choose to Live. It was this alien species that was going to be extinct. Ebronian. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
Was that any makeup or involved in that, or is that all like, was that CGI or computer generated?
I haven't seen the episode yet. I'm assuming it's all CGI. I would have to see what it looks like because I haven't watched it yet. We were going to watch it tonight. But we didn't do any makeup on that from my understanding. It was all the digital effects.
Okay. Yeah. Because we did. Yeah.
That's a bummer because it looks like, it doesn't look like there's anybody in it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe because it doesn't move. They don't move. So I just right now I was like, well, maybe I'll just pull up a picture so to refresh your memory. And well, I Googled Ebronian in Discovery and this is what I got. So I doesn't really, I guess that's the best we can do. That's not going to cut it, is it?
That's not our work. None of those guys are our work.
Yeah, but they kind of looked actually in a way, I've never seen the show, but if you've ever seen Falling Skies, the aliens that Doug Jones actually played in Falling Skies, Cochise, like they kind of looked like that, right? These big heads. I don't know if that recognizes.
Oh, I know. I remember what you're talking about. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
They're like in a cocoon
episode yet, but it's all digital effects.
Wow, it was really okay.
Very, very well done because I couldn't tell. I was like,
I couldn't.
What is that? I couldn't tell.
I was waiting for it to reach up.
I'm always amazed by the VFX on this show. I have to say they do an insane work, and I feel like they're definitely. Sometimes I feel like they don't get their acclaim because they do, like we're sitting on these sets sometimes, you're like, what on earth are these guys going to do to make this come alive? Yeah. And you watch the episodes and you're just like, wow, they do such phenomenal work, the VFX team and everything. I'm always blown away by the work that they create.
I do want to say in this episode also, first of all, we had a NAM today. Cirroc, I don't know if you caught the NAM. We call NAMs non-appearance mentions. That's when somebody is not an actor and their character is not actually on screen, but they are mentioned. We feel like they should get credit still, even if they're not on IMDb, and they're not getting paid that day. The character was our good friend, Dr. Pollard. Wilson Cruz's character said, "Oh, Dr. Pollard will be here," something like that. And I was like, "Are we going to see her finally?" No, not yet, but good not that yet. She got a NAM. I also noticed in the bar scene, there was a bar or a lounge or something like that. The Ferengi was behind the bar, which was a nice touch, of course. Really, really beautiful bar, beautiful set with like little fireplaces. And there was a Lurian, which is Morn's alien. He was in a little cubby. I don't know if you know specifically what the Lurians are, Rocky. Have you worked on the Lurians themselves? That's like a full body thing.
Well, those guys, a lot of especially with COVID last year, a lot of things have changed. So a lot of those, like the Ferengi, the Lurian, a lot of those are like, they're designed to be background masks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. To easy put things on and off, because it was a very limited crew on certain sets and scenes, and for just the amount of people we could have in a trailer and stuff, and even find to work with us. But those are masks that are there.
Okay.
Like very beautiful silicone masks that Alchemy and Glenn have designed.
So Alchemy,
so they require less time to prepare. It's just like more of a slip-on quick thing.
Yeah, because a lot of those guys don't have dialogue or anything, and they just wanted to establish some background aliens and everything. And without, again, with COVID and everything else, the number of people we could process going through a trailer, a lot of things had changed last season. So they had to kind of figure out a quick way to get people on camera, even if it's just background shapes and recognizable forms and stuff. So just a slip-on silicone mask, paint the eyes, paint the mouth. Some of them have like little blenders and stuff around the eyes if we need to do that, or if they're going to feature them a little closer. But for the most part, last year was with some masks thrown in there.
That's really interesting, because I'm always noticing, what shows and Discovery in particular are doing on screen, that you can actually see how they adjusted to COVID. Like less scenes with a ton of people is always the most obvious one, and a lot of little 2-person walk and talk things, But one thing I hadn't considered is the makeup department. How do they get less people's faces putting, makeup? And that's a way that your team has kind of figured out, or the producers have figured out, is, well, things that are more background, if we can make it more of a mask and not zoom in too much on them, then that's less time in the makeup chair, and that's less people that need to come on, and that's less exposure to each other. Are there other ways that we don't know about that your department specifically was affected by COVID?
There was just so much new stuff. I mean, really, Discovery was one of the first, from my understanding, like the producers were like, so what are they doing on Picard to deal with COVID? And what are they wearing? Are the prosthetic people wearing? And I'm like, we're back like months before Picard. We're the ones setting these rules.
You're the trailblazers.
Yeah. So for a big prosthetic show, we were one of the first, from what I've heard, to go back up and resume filming earlier on. So there's a lot of things that we had to figure out, like how many people we could have in the trailer at a certain time. You've got to be 6 feet apart. How many people can be in a station? Like you said, a lot of walk and talks. You can only have 2 actors, and you couldn't be this close. And in later episodes, you'll see a lot more background people, because things changed and progressed as the show went on, because it was such a long shoot. But earlier on, things were very limited in what we could have on set.
Ryan, what's the name of that alien that has the blue fish head alien guy on this show?
Are you?
He's kind of like.
Are you talking about the Osnolus?
Oh, it's not.
I think
yeah.
Yeah,
they've got like that big head, and there's one of them on the bridge usually.
Yeah.
Osnolus. There are like two of them, right?
Yeah, there's a purple one and like a more orangish, burnt orange sort of one that's usually out there.
Now that's not makeup, right? That's
no, that's a huge head.
Yeah, that's another big mask that they created. See, I think she was there. I can't remember if she started season 1 or season 2 offhand.
I think when season 2.
I think so too. Yeah. But
not that I'm like a nerd that follows everything with Discovery. Right?
Everything seems like a blur to me sometimes, so it's hard to remember with everything. So.
Yeah, and there were some scenes though that we do have a lot of different aliens in I feel like scenes that have, say, 6 Klingons or 6 Vulcans feel like they'd be easier than 6 different aliens, because then you can't just almost like conveyor belt them, like, okay, put all the ears on, I'm sure you don't do it that way, but like,
no, it's more or less like, sometimes it's like that. And again,
really,
those are easier things to do. And if you have, each big prosthetic makeup takes about 2 artists. So, having that number of people working at that time with COVID was very difficult, but a Vulcan or a Romulan or something like that, it's just ears and a forehead. It was much easier. So that's again, how they try to figure out, well, what can we do in this duration of time with one artist and this spacing that we're supposed to abide by to continue shooting and everything. So.
Now, Rocky, you were born in 78, same year as me. So we're both 78ers. And I saw here that in 2019, you did win an Emmy for your work on Discovery.
Wow.
Is that correct?
Wow.
Can you just talk a little bit about, being validated for your life's work and the, culminating into this achievement of being recognized in such a prestigious way?
We were all, definitely very honored. We were surprised because we were up against Game of Thrones. The previous year we lost to Game of Thrones. And so they were like announcing everything, and they're like, Game of Thrones and Star Trek Discovery. And we were like already clapping for Game of Thrones. Like, yeah, you guys killed it again. Amazing work. And then they called our name and we're all like, wait, did they just say our name? And Glenn's like, get up, you guys, like, go up there. What are you doing? We're like, holy cow, I can't believe they just called our name. This is the coolest thing ever. Who would have thought? Because there's so many, for me, there's so many amazing shows and so many amazing artists, and just like the level of, for my field, for makeup effects, is just like every year it gets better and better and better and crazier stuff. So to see, to be up there with these people who I admire, and it was definitely an honor for sure. Because I'm like, wow, I can't believe we beat these guys, because in my book they're phenomenal. So it was definitely an honor, and we were all very thrilled and lucky to be a part of it. So it was a blast.
Do you think that there is anything that you can put your finger at to say it was probably this? Would you say was it Saru? Was it, what do you think it was that won you that race?
I think there's just a lot of characters, like there was a lot of makeup effects and different aliens and species and stuff like that. Sometimes I don't know really how they judge this stuff. I'm sure Glenn and some of these other guys know better. I just think there was a plethora of different species and stuff compared to a show that might just have zombies, or a show that might just have vampires, or whatever it may be. I think that was probably like, oh, look at this huge body of work that they accomplished on this TV show. So that's my guess.
Yeah.
So,
there was also in this episode, there was also a scene, or a couple of scenes in which they are putting together a body for the character Gray. And I just want to know, were you responsible? Did you work on Gray's Anatomy? Sorry, I just had to make that joke. But
oh god.
no, but I don't think so, right? There was no prosthetics there.
No, just the trill tattoos and stuff
Right.
on the side of the head.
Sorry, Cirroc. Okay, it was a funny joke. It was a funny joke, and it was relevant to this episode.
It was all about the setup. Yeah, we noticed that also Guardian Z, who was talked about in this, is also a trill, right?
Yeah.
I did notice the spots there, but I just we hadn't heard of this character, so it was a little bit like, oh, who's this guy? And then I said, oh, he's a trill. But no, this episode, I mean, in general, because I know you didn't see this episode, but in general, the show has an incredible aesthetic value. And we talk about this all the time. The way the sets look, the way the costumes look, the way the uniforms look. I mean, it is motion picture quality on a television show, essentially.
For sure. Yeah.
You know, and also, oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I was just going to say, like you're talking about the bar earlier, where you saw the Ferengi in the bar scene. I mean, that set was so cool. I was just like, wait, why aren't you guys going to shoot this table? Or why? Like, it was just such a phenomenal set. You know, you miss all these fabulous details in some of this stuff, and it is film. I mean, you know, it's just as good as any film I've ever been on. You know, it's phenomenal the amount of work and pride that these guys put into some of these sets, and you see, you know, very little of it sometimes.
Mm-hmm. You know, and along those lines, and it's true, like Cirroc knows just as well as we do, or anybody, because he was on Star Trek for 7 years. But the amount of detail that people work on, whether it's production design, whether it's props, whether it's wardrobe, whether it's you know, effects and makeup, you do all this stuff just in case the camera sees it. But most of the stuff, all the work that you're doing does not get seen, or it gets cut out or whatever. And in that same scene, that bar scene, it was freaking gorgeous. I loved it. I kept pausing it and going back. And there were so many details that, you know, probably, you know, we missed, we didn't get to see, including a couple known characters working background in that episode. I don't know, Rocky, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Cirroc, I can tell from your frown that you didn't catch this, but yeah. I think I took a screenshot of it because I immediately was like, wait a second, hang on. And I went back because, yeah, here it is. No, that's not it. That's another one. Well, anyway, maybe I didn't get it. I thought I did, but there was, in the background, there was Detmer and our boy Bryce at a table way in the background. And like, I had to pause it and go back, and you can see her cybernetic implant, which I'm sure that's you guys. And that's the dead giveaway. And they're just working background. I don't know if there was like a scene between them that ended up being cut out in the edit, or if they're just like, hey guys, because of COVID, you're also working background. You know, like, we're not bringing in extra people. So if we need 2 people to fit, you're working a day, have a seat, talk about craft services or whatever. I guess you guys didn't see it, but I had to rewind it a few times. But you've done, what's her name? Emily Coots. You guys do her cybernetic implant, right?
Yeah, it changed this year a little bit. You know, several people have noticed that it has changed. Because it doesn't go quite as far. There's a time jump and everything else, so they wanted to adjust some things on her face and everything and make it easier. And also, again, with COVID, now it's a very quick process for her to be processed. Before, I think it was like an hour and a half, and now we put the little piece on her in like 10 minutes, not even 10 minutes, like just a couple minutes. Wow. So it was a much quicker process to get her in and out of the chair. You know, because they still have to go to hair and makeup and everything else. So it was just a way, since they did do the time jump this season, that they figured they could adjust some things on some people and make it easier.
Mm-hmm. You know, I did get it, and here it is. I looked at the screenshot, and they're so far in the background that I missed it and looked past it. So, but I did actually get it. It's check it out. It's right here. It's between Saru and Admiral Vance.
Oh yeah,
there they are. Right, that's her, that's Bryce. There's his little beard right there. Anyway, so I just thought that was really interesting, and then just all the attention to detail here, just amazing. Anyway,
quick question. I always wonder about this. What kind of reference material do they give you when you're preparing to embark on these kinds of projects? Are you given like, okay, these are all the Ferengis and Vulcans from the animated show and the original series? Do you get like a Bible with all these different alien designs in it and then go from there, or is it just like, half of you know it already and just pull off the top of your head?
It's kind of like, I mean, thank God for the internet, you can look anything up.
Yeah.
Glenn and at Alchemy, who designs all the prosthetics again, they have a Bible of like, he did it, I think, on his own will to show producers and say, hey, pick something from here if you like this, or these characters exist out here, just to try to promote to have familiar things and things that have already been in the universe and stuff. So again, a lot of it comes from there. And anything else, I mean, we generally look up. I'll ask Glenn. He's a genius with all that stuff. He'll know every single thing that I ask him, or send a reference and stuff like that for any characters or any questions and stuff like that if we don't know. But yeah, there's so much reference material and stuff like that. And like I said, he created an encyclopedia of aliens and stuff that he gave to people. So.
Man, we've got to see that book.
Yeah,
because if we do, we're gonna be like, dude, why aren't you using this one on page 47? 47 is a Star Trek reference, by the way. But I'm sure that there's just so many good pages where you're like, okay, at some point we've got to use this one.
For sure. And again, we love our job and love what we do. So obviously we want more aliens and more makeup and more this. So out of anybody, we are the ones pushing for it, So we're definitely all for it.
Wow.
I have a personal question for you, and because one year when we were working on DS9, I asked the makeup department to make a special prosthetic mask for me for Halloween.
Really?
Yeah. It was like a Freddy Krueger type of melted face mask, and it was really cool. They sat me down and did the whole making a mold of your face, and it was really cool.
Wow.
And I actually won a competition. If I wasn't going to win a competition at that point, that's the time you win a competition. When you get a professional studio,
you were going to lose to a ghost.
Yeah. No, nobody with a bed sheet was going to beat me this time. So I was official. And so that just brings me to a personal question about Halloween, and do you celebrate it, and what are some of the kind of costumes that you come up with?
I used to all the time. I feel like, we just work it and live it every single day. So sometimes it's like, do I want to get all my stuff out of the trailer? Do I want to go through that process? If there's like a cool Halloween party or something, you might, when I first started, I would always do it, or, so many people request that you do their makeup for Halloween and stuff. But at a certain point, you're like, I just want a day off. It depends on what you're doing and how busy you are. But I obviously I love Halloween, but I feel like a lot of times we are living it every day in our jobs. We're playing make believe and dress up and making zombies and aliens and whatever. So it's coming. You're doing cool stuff all the time.
With the way you're dressed up in all flannel and you're up in the Pacific Northwest, it feels like it should be like a Nirvana song, like Halloween is every day or something. There's something there. I don't know, man. You play guitar or something?
I wish.
Okay,
I've
there's
tried.
Something. We'll see. A few quick points about this episode. There was a big reference and multiple references to, and this is, well, I guess the second time, and one happened just in the second episode, and now it's happened again in the third episode, where Discovery is referencing Picard. In the second episode, they were saying, they flat out said, Picard was the first guy to put his mind into a new synthetic body. They referenced that. In this one, they were referencing the Qowat Milat, who were covered fairly extensively in Picard. And they even used Elnor's line, but I guess it's the entire Qowat Milat's line, which was choose to live. And I need to charge this thing. But that's definitely something that I'm assuming is going to continue to happen bit by bit, is Picard can reference things that happen in the first 2 seasons of Discovery, but nothing after that. But Discovery can now reference things in Picard. And so that's just an interesting part of what's going on in Discovery and kind of starting in the last couple episodes. So all that being said, Rocky, real quick, and don't kill me, everybody, real quick. You're working on the Orville season 3, or you did work on the Orville season 3. Can you tell us a little bit about that, shifting gears, because we also love the Orville?
I worked on it before. It's kind of a long story. I worked on it before like COVID hit and everything, and it kind of changed hands again. There was new people running the effects department, so it was working with a new group of people. It's a great show. I mean, it's super fun. It's totally different vibe. The sets are different. The makeups are different. Seth, just, it's so over the top and it's so fun. It's like some of the characters and stuff like that. And it's such witty writing. I feel like it's really different than Discovery, just by the different sort of playfulness that they have. And like the ship is a little bit more not low key, like it's just so different, it's not quite as shiny, it's brighter, it's not as dark, from what I remember. I only worked there for a couple months, and then COVID hit, then we shut down, so I was there for a couple months, and then a different team picked up the rest of the season 3 that did season 1 and 2.
Okay. What alien prosthetics had you worked on when you were there?
Peter, I can't think of what Peter's character's name is. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a total brain fart. That seems like a whirlwind.
Who's Peter now? I gotta think.
Peter is the main.
Bortus.
Bortus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Peter.
Right.
Yeah, Bortus.
Mm.
Sorry, my brain. It's been a while.
It's been a while for us too. There's like a chasm between season 2 and 3.
Yeah, and again, it's such a different show, and it's even like the makeup effects are different too, because they use a lot more foam, latex, and stuff. Discovery uses a lot more silicone. It's just personal preference on what they like, what producers may like, what the screen may like, if they want to do a more retro, old school look. So it is a different show in many aspects, but it was great. I mean, just watching Seth direct and his ideas, it's just like, wow, it's it's amazing. It's definitely a genius in that brain for sure.
Mm-hmm. Love Seth. Cirroc, we only have a couple minutes left, but any final thought? I mean, there's a lot of stuff to cover in this episode. Maybe we'll have to cover it next time, but do you have any final thoughts? I'll get us started. We see Michael Burnham's mom again, Dr. Gabrielle Burnham, which was cool. Our friend Melissa Longo said this was her favorite episode so far this season. Tilly was great, and not just the writing for Tilly, but again and again and again, Mary Wiseman is a very strong actor. She understands comedic timing. She understands delivery. She's very natural. From the very first scene, when she first walked into Michael Burnham's quarters, we're introduced to this wonderful actress. So she got to shine again in this episode. And I'm very happy when they give her comedy, because she never doesn't completely excel, I should say, in the comedic scenes. She always kills it. A lot of good stuff in this episode. What do you think, Cirroc?
Oh yeah, a lot. Mary Weissman. Her character reminds me of Meg Ryan in When Harry Met Sally.
Wow,
that's a throwback for all you youngsters out there. So you'll have to.
When
go
you
back
say
and
that,
look
everybody
at
just thinks of that one line that everybody knows.
No, there's something. This is a funness, playfulness, the energy that she has. It's that kind of stuff. Those qualities that I love that she brings to the table. Saru is, he's just such a father figure to everybody.
Yeah.
I like that he plays it that way. Was a surprise for me to see Burnham's mom. One of the things is my timeline in my head is messed up on this show, right? Because you guys went 1,000. I don't know where we're at some point. Sometimes I have to remind myself, okay, so this is what happened. Did that happen before that or before this? And it's kind of, I have to really set myself. Like with her mom, I was like, well, how's she getting to the future? And
she was there first,
yeah, but she was there first. So
yeah.
So there was, I have to remind myself of these kinds of things. But yeah, I'm glad that they finally put a resolution to Gray's character, and now we can stop being in this gray zone where she's not, where she's here and there. So yeah, I'm glad that we're putting some closure to that. I love the way I forgot her name. Gray's significant other, Adira's performance was really good in this episode. I love the way when Gray finally did have a body, the way her performance was after like she's actually here and it's tangible. Very believable for me in the performance of that moment. Book is just the camera loves Book, right? I just feel like he's totally. like how the camera likes Idris Elba. Like he's
for sure.
It's just the camera likes him and he looks good on it and he can say pretty much anything he wants and I'm going to buy it. So definitely a lot going on here. But once again, just to give you your praise and properly congratulate you for the work that you're doing, Rocky, and all of you guys in the makeup department. You are doing fantastic job. The work is A1, impeccable. It's obviously award-winning work, and that's not my opinion. That's what the world says. And furthermore, you're following in the footsteps of some of the greatest people to do that job. The Michael Westmores of the game, the Robert Blackmons of the game. These guys are legends in their respective fields, and for you guys to carry that mantle as excellently as you are doing, I think that my hat is off to you, and keep up the good work, man. You're doing awesome.
Thank you very much. That's extremely nice of you to say, of course. I mean, those guys are phenomenal and people that I've looked up to my whole career and had books when I was growing up trying to figure out how they created this stuff. So it's definitely very nice to hear, and I hope the fans enjoy it. And we try our best with all the madness going on and long days and everything. We try our best to make everybody look as obviously always as good as possible.
You do.
Great. We'll have to, everybody at home, we'll have to continue on the conversation in the comments section. Our buddy Don Crandall sent us a bunch of good stuff. And the people in the live chat will obviously be talking about this a little bit more. In fact, let me just close out by bringing up a couple things that Mr. Don Crandall said, because he always gets us some good stuff. One thing was he mentioned that this was similar to Space 1999, which Cirroc might know that show. I don't know it, but I don't really know much about anything, honestly, except for sports. And even that's kind of limited. But he did say that, here's what he said. In an early scene, the Navarre representative offers to remove Book's guilt with a psychic procedure. It reminded me of Star Trek V's Cybok, who would remove people's pain with a mind meld. So that's a really interesting thing that I had missed. Oh, and he also caught that there were darts, and Latinum mentioned, and they were playing darts. Remember, Adira was playing darts at one scene. I made a note of that too. I was like, whoa, darts. It's like the old days of watching Deep Space Nine and watching Miles and Julian play darts. So that was a fun one. Anyway, lots of good stuff that Don added. We'll check those out in the comments. But until then, Rocky, thank you so much for joining us. This was a ton of fun. We really hope to see you again soon. And, you know, we just appreciate you taking the time out of your day for us.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. I hope I gave you a little bit of insight of what goes on. So thank you again for having me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And please give our love to everybody over there in the makeup department. We talked a lot about Glenn today, so we should make sure that we give our shout out to him.
Yeah.
And also keep our fingers crossed that maybe he can release a copy of that to the public.
Yeah, when you say release, he thinks sell.
yeah. Sell it. I mean, you know, publish it and sell it. We want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great guy, and I'm sure if you talk to him about it, I'm sure he'll give you a little insight on it. And
yeah, a little show and tell. He'll be like,
what he's come up with. Yeah, he loves all that stuff. So I'm sure he will. He's like I said, very, very great guy.
Mm-hmm. We're hoping to have him on the show in just a few weeks as well. So fingers crossed. And you said his company's name is Alchemy. That is a great name for a company, or the company with which he works. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So we do want to give a very special thanks to, Cirroc knows where I'm going with this, Carmen, aka Skillet.
Skillet.
TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri. Bill Victor Arucan.
Arucan.
Yvette Blackmon, Tom Homer, Frizzell, Eve England out in Wales. Dr. Marie Segal. Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Timothy Baum, who loves freaking soccer. Like, this guy loves soccer. It's crazy. Titus Mohler. Yeah. John Mann, Darlena Marie, and Rex A. Wood. Thank you all very much. Rocky, thank you so much again for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you again sometime soon.
Thank you.
And everybody at home, thank you. Until next time, always remember the 7th rule.